everybody, it's Corrado Ranjo, and in this video, we're gonna talk about if you should buy or rent a property. I'm gonna go over some important factors that will help you determine what makes better sense for you. One of the biggest reasons why properties in Toronto, New York, and LA have appreciated so much is mostly because of supply and demand. Now let's talk about Toronto since I live here. Toronto in general has opened up, well, Canada in general has actually opened up the gates to pretty much the world. In 2019, this year, we're expected to have 330,800 new immigrants. By 2021, we're gonna be at around 1 million new immigrants, and therefore, that's why properties have doubled in value in the past 10 years. The average detached home in Toronto is approximately $1 million. So let's say you're gonna need a mortgage of $800,000. You're gonna need 20% of $1 million, which is $200,000. In order to get approved with an A lender at 2.89% on a 5-year term, 25-year amortization, you're gonna need about a 700 beacon score, and you're gonna need a total income of around $150,000. Although you might think that you're approved for a mortgage, this happens all the time with my clients. I always recommend that they go to their bank or they go to a mortgage broker and they get a pre-approval. The reason why I'm recommending this is because there's also a stress test, and the stress test is basically if the rates were to ever go to 5.19%, you're gonna have to show that you can actually make the payments at 5.19%. And if you don't pass the test, there's also other resources. There's other banks that will actually approve you, but they're gonna charge a higher interest rate. They could charge an additional 1%, which would make it to like 3.89% or even 4%. Let's say that you do get approved with an A lender at 2.89% on a 5-year term, 25-year amortization. Your monthly payment is gonna be approximately $3,750. The real estate market in Toronto and Canada in general is a lot different than the US. The reason why I know this is because I owned a property. I owned a house in Florida for 3 years. I rented it out, and there's a lot more supply in the US than there is in Toronto and Canada. And one of the reasons why is because the government in Canada makes it really difficult for builders to build properties. Just applying for permits, financing, all that kind of stuff. It just takes so much time. And for the amount of people that are moving to Canada, we just can't keep up with the population growth and the construction. So it's like pulling teeth, getting permits to build for the population and people that are moving here. Let's go over the piggy bank concept, because a lot of old school people that moved to Canada like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s used to always follow the piggy bank concept. And my dad himself followed this piggy bank concept, which I didn't agree to. Their philosophy was to put all the money that they earned from work and put it into their home, whether it was paying down the mortgage or putting it into renovations. This is how the old school generation saw this. Looking at it today, it was actually a good investment because it's actually gone up a lot since then. Looking at it today, anybody that did this has made a lot of money because of capital appreciation. For myself, I don't use the piggy bank concept. One of the reasons why back then this was very popular is because interest rates were anywhere from like 12% to even 18%. So today, I would rather use the bank's money and make more money with it because interest rates are only anywhere from 2 to 4%. A lot of people still till today prefer this method because this is what their parents and their grandparents instilled in them. So now let's get into it. Let's go over all the costs when you're buying or selling a property. When you buy a home, you're gonna have to pay for closing costs such as land transfer taxes, lawyer fees. Some even have to pay lender fees if their credit's not the greatest. You have insurance and moving fees as well. These fees can actually add up really fast. And I know I'm a realtor and I could save a lot of money on the realtor fee, but one of the reasons why I was able to do this on a frequent basis is because I made 50% on all my properties and it made sense to buy and sell. Yes, your monthly carrying cost is gonna be more if you decide to own than to rent, but if you rented for 5 to 10 years, the money that you put into the rental is basically gonna be a deficit than owning a property. However, if you own your principal residence, historically, you can make anywhere from 6 to even 10% on the value of your property, not your down payment. If you're the type of person that will not occupy your principal residence, then renting will make a lot more sense for you because of all the closing costs. If your job entails of you to move frequently, It does not make sense for you to own a property. It'll make sense for you to rent unless your employer is actually going to cover the costs, all the closing costs, and all the costs associated with selling a property. Let me give an example of a client of mine. She works with the police force and she does get transferred frequently from different provinces. But her employer actually covers a lot of the costs associated with closing costs and selling a property. If she didn't have help from her employer, I would recommend for her to rent instead of to buy. In this situation, she has nothing to lose but capital appreciation. If her employer did not cover the fees associated with closing on a property or selling a property, I would advise her to rent something and invest her money into income producing properties. This is the difference on how renting a property can impact your family and their sense of security instead of owning a home. One of my favorite things about owning a home is being able to leverage the property. So what I do is I get a line of credit. It's called a home equity line of credit. I'll basically take that money, invest it into buying other real estate, and basically that normally makes me more than the cost of borrowing the money. When I was about to buy my first property, I remember I didn't move forward with it because I was short by like $300 to $500 a month. I remember making a spreadsheet and I calculated all my expenses and I also calculated how much the basement apartment would have made me, and I was actually short, so I didn't proceed with the property. I remember at that time, I didn't have the opportunity to rent an additional room on the main floor, and if I did, I think I would have made up that difference to be able to afford the property and make up for that $300 to $500, which if there was Airbnb back at that time, for sure I know I would have went through with it because it was in a location where there's a super high demand for Airbnb, but I didn't have that opportunity. So now Airbnb is actually giving people that opportunity to afford these type of properties. And yeah, I'm happy it's actually out because it's giving people the opportunity to get into the market. Airbnb has allowed people that own their homes to rent out rooms in their house. Back then, the only way to actually earn an income through your property is renting out a floor, the basement or the main level, whatever it is, and it was long-term leasing. Now, Airbnb has allowed us to make money renting our properties short-term. I hope this video helped you make a decision if you should rent or buy a property, but if you're still confused, hit me up. Maybe we could bust up an espresso or even a Kinder Brioche. If you got one thing out of this video, do me a huge favor and like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Adios. Oh, fuck, I forgot my brioche.